suppose Joe too.
Okay. Okay, well, it shows that we are live on my screen.
Okay.
All right, my name is Sheila Corona, and I am with my gal pal posse, Lisa Flamino Rush and BZ Rieger. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
It's been a minute since.
Oh, see, it takes a while. It does. Okay.
What you mean for the going live part?
Yeah. I mean, when you heard my phone, that was us going live.
I know. Well, what's so funny about that is that my my channel on my tablet still doesn't show us going live. I mean, I see the event there. Now we're live. Okay. So it is Monday.
Go live all the time.
Well,
which is nice.
I was gonna say,
it's helpful.
oh yeah. So, contrary to popular belief, we are alive. Yes. Okay.
Celebrate that.
Yes. Well, but you know, it has been a while since the three of us got together and did a live decode. And yay! Dottie Alders said, haha, first one on the live. Dorothy is here. Yay, Dorothy.
Welcome.
So I don't really think that the three of us have gotten together to discuss all of the fun goings on. Let's put it that way, shall we?
Yeah.
That happens to be going on the world stage right now, and so
does everybody realize that it really is fun, spectacular, exciting, and out of this world?
I don't know. What do you guys think? There are 8 of you right now watching. And so that is a good question, BZ. What do you guys think? I mean, personally, I do. It feels like, to me, A, it's fun and exciting. And B, it's like, okay, so because Lisa and I am visiting my sister in Western North Carolina right now. And so I'm not at home. And I have to tell you that my sister and I have been watching the hearings that are going on, the one in Pennsylvania and the one in Arizona, the entire thing from beginning to end. I have to tell you, it is fantastic. I honestly, it is my sincere hope that more Americans are watching what's going on.
And what they're bringing out in those hearings is not even, that's just the very surface, very light, very meh treasonous. Excuse me, that's enough. Treasonous fraud. So they haven't even gotten to the big stuff yet.
No, but I have to tell you, listening to Giuliani's opening statements, both for Pennsylvania and today in Arizona, it's clear to me, anyway, it feels clear to me that this is the opportunity that they're taking to do as much informing as possible. And part of that is from what I've noticed, well, because, the mainstream media keeps saying these are all baseless claims.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, they're all using that same word,
yes,
too.
They are.
Baseless.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
well,
I don't know.
It's information. It's informative for all, because in this, well, I mean, Lisa and I talked a little bit about this last night, but I guess it depends where you start, because this really wasn't set up and run as just a regular election. Like, okay, hey, it's prior to November 3rd, so we got the early voting and we have the mail voting and all this kind of stuff, and now it's the 3rd, and all that kind of stuff, and hey, who won, and as an election, because it wasn't. If you think that's what occurred on those days, then you've missed 99 and 9/10% of the plan that unfolded and what was really going on. So yeah, it will ultimately count on how they go, but it wasn't designed as your normal regular election. It wasn't meant to be, wasn't shown to be. And this fraud, this wholesale, it's beyond fraud because it's such a high level and it's premeditated and orchestrated, planned, that it was known that this was going to happen. This wasn't a surprise. It was known to happen. In fact, there was an awful lot of beings who were involved in watching in various degrees of participation. Some was overt and, leading the charge of manipulation, and some was just watching it, from the moment that it happened. So in rooms, there were you could, things comes to me like a control room, if we were doing an event on ABC Sports or something, where you can watch all the monitors and you could say, okay, well, let's move, 100,000 ballots just out of the Trump column into the trash. And so one set would be orchestrating that. So if for a particular county in a particular state, so let's see, and calling a play-by-play as if that the way that a director calls the cameras and says, okay, camera 2, give me a shot of that, right? Give me a cheesecake shot on Joe Namath, all those kinds of things. So that's how it was going. And then you'd have other rooms that are watching the same thing. Okay, hey, pull up the action that's happening now in the same such and such county, in the same such and such state, and look at that. Watch 100,000, and someone's tallying, all of this down, not only in a video way, in an audio way, in a metrics way, in a spreadsheet way, in a timestamp. When you watch any sports on, well, they do it with other things, but when you watch any sports on television, there are timers that go through their kind of ascribed timers, and they watch the broadcast, and you're logging it. I used to do this. You sit down and you have to watch the football game, and you say at 43 seconds it was a first down, or went to commercial, or whatever it is, and so you dissect so that when someone's going to do a highlight reel, or they want to put a show together, or they want to call up plays from all the plays of this X player, it's all cataloged, and they can then search it, and they can call up, or they know on such and such a date at hour and 43 minutes and 10 seconds, right? Joe Namath did X, and this is what it was, right? And so that they can log it. So anyways, this was the same kind of thing that was going on with this. And so they could watch, hey, at whatever time that was, in whatever county, whatever state, they just moved 100,000 votes for Trump into the trash can. Or they move this, or they move that. And so they can see real time live, and they have it all captured.
Right.
And that's what the server, where the votes were being streamed to, and all of that data in Germany, in the CIA, our CIA house, but it wasn't ours at the time. And then the votes actually being tabulated in, what was it, Spain, and what was the other country?
Yes.
So I mean, all of it. So what I'm saying is, if you think that this was a surprise, it wasn't. Now that's part of the way it's portrayed, because it's for everybody to wake up.
No, I know. That's what it seems to, well, it feels very clear to me in one way that is, because I had a bit of deja vu, like I said, watching these hearings
Remind you of Knoxville at all?
Yes, actually, it did remind me of Knoxville quite a bit. And the so now having taken part in Knoxville and the frustration that I felt in Knoxville, now I get it.
That was real.
And I get why and how it's being done, the whole point and the reason, because it is, and I know it's really tough when you say, BZ, when you say it's an inside job. A lot of people are looking around like, how, right? But it is in that
inside job.
It will, and in a whole bunch of different ways too. It's
well,
a very
every iteration just keep saying that phrase over and over again, and you look at it from this angle and this angle and this angle and this angle, and you still won't recover them all. But yes, it's an inside job.
Right, and this is where, for myself, having been so frustrated, like I said, sitting in that courtroom in Knoxville, and thinking to myself, if people only knew, and that was where the desire to try to go out and shoot the living shit out of people, wake the F up, right? I mean,
I actually had a thought the other day. I just haven't had a chance to mull it over a little and do it, but of getting in touch with, and you might remember his name, I can't think of his name right now, but the gentleman in Knoxville who was an online, either a Facebook thing, I think it was a Facebook group, and it was a newspaper, and he actually did pretty good stuff, and he picked up some of the things, and I invited.
Who are you talking about?
Yeah, do you remember the name of that paper?
I look it up. I just couldn't remember at the time. But anyway, so I was seeing his face and talking, but I thought I'd get in touch and say, well, so what do you think now that you see everything that they talked about, unfolding in real time here, and just wait, you're going to get to the rest of it. And I would imagine a number of those jurors, are going, uh-oh.
I've been thinking about that as different stuff came out. I thought, boy, I wonder, what the moment, what it will take, like, what will they hear? And all of a sudden, all those days in the courtroom will come flooding back, and there'll be this,
Well, and it's been happening for a while, not just the election, because it's struck, and the text messages and the insurance policy. I mean, that was right up there. That was where, I can't think of her name right now, Cynthia Davidson. What do you mean, there's this, the president was in this and that and the other thing. Well, hey, just take a look at it. So yeah, so that's a lot of people, it's kind of the Eeyore syndrome, are like, oh, we didn't win, and everything's going to hell in a handbasket, and we're never going to get there, and yet this is a spectacular time, and the amount of expansion and illumination for each individual that's occurring right at this moment, to move into, to dive into, and then help to share and kind of reinvent that energy wave out to others is just huge. And by the way, the Eeyore thing is exactly what the powers that were love. They want that. They because that helps their side. That makes things go slower, and makes the ultimate reveal go slower, and it sets up an energetic kind of a countering of the prevailing energy force and the critical mass of the energy of the light is winning and moving all forward. So there are an awful lot of beings who have there's 3 of them right on this picture screen here, have an absolute knowing that where we're going, what's unfolding, why it's unfolding the way it is, exactly what's happening. And there's millions like that. But they're the ones that energetically, working when they're sleeping and the rest of the time as well, to hold that energy sync for all the ones who aren't awake, but it's actually the ones who are doing the Eeyore thing that are more causing more of a drag on that balance and the expansion quotient for the energy frequency. That's having more of a drag than the ones that aren't awake.
I hadn't thought about that, you know, in that sort of a term. But I don't know, and maybe it's because, you know, well, today is the full moon and it is a lunar eclipse. And by the way, I don't know if the two of you were aware, but it's a full moon Gemini eclipse. Now, so that because for me, that's a big damn deal. Gemini, this is all about communication. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communication. Full moons are all about full illumination. Think about a full moon on a clear night. It almost looks like day. Right. And so energetically, it feels to me like I personally, so I'm thinking that, you know, this is the case for a lot of folks, can see, sense, and feel things a lot clearer during this particular moment of now. It feels like, now, doesn't mean everything by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, and that goes for everyone on the planet. It doesn't, you know, Susie down the road who doesn't know jack squat nor could give two craps about whether or not it's a full moon in Gemini and makes no difference, might still have you know, information coming in clearly because it is an energetic thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's just flying in.
Right.
And it's, you know, to go back to what I was saying about it's not, you know, it is not and was not your regular presidential election in just the year of 2020. But and people are throwing around a lot that, and it's true. Again, this is all from a linear and spiritual, but a linear, more narrowly constricted, narrow focused aperture of consciousness, that we have been in a spiritual war for a very long time. You know, right, you know, here on this planet. But right now we are in, and actually we have been this for a while as well, but it's that war has expanded, and it is now an actual, so literal and figurative, linear war and a spiritual war, all at the same time. That's all very, very, very visible. And war, just like, so instead of a nuclear warhead being shot off and the missile comes in and oh, look at that, you know, and the town right over there just blows up. So that is actually happening. Those strikes are coming in. The strikes are just coming in and detonating in a fashion that is through digital channels right now and digital infrastructure, and they're torpedoing all over. So one of the things that happened with the 5 of the special ops forces being killed, and one of the bad guys, the CIA, which is supposed to be us, but it's not, because it's absolutely ruthless, bad team, were killed in the raid when they went to get the servers. So that's actually kicked all of this war that we're in up another notch, and it's also changed what you might look at from the linear landscape, the complexion of steps that can be taken and the powers that the president, who just happens to be, you know, the right guy at this moment, can take to bring all of this to the public, that can bring all this to the forefront. So there are channels right now that you go through, but just because you hear that you know, Ducey in his wisdom has gone ahead and certified the results, and he's the governor of Arizona, or Kemp in Georgia is doing different things. Again, this is all part of the reveal and part of the illumination for people to see whose hats these are, because there's an awful lot of things. Well, the Democrats, there is no such thing as Democrats and Republicans, and they're rats, you know, on both sides.
Well,
and
there's
you're seeing it right there. I mean, if you get two Republican governors,
Right.
that, and make no mistake, that's why, hey, you need to stop, please.
They're having so much fun.
That's one of the reasons that President Trump went to bat for the governor of Georgia. And that's why he got elected, because he, you know, tweeted out and said, and got support. Yeah. Did he get switched and bait? Did Trump screw up? Did he not? No way. He got confirmation, which is why he went in at the last minute and drove so hard to get him elected, because he wanted him right in the place so he would act naturally and do what he does so well and be a treasonous guy.
Yeah.
So well, and actually, he's a poster child for all that.
This isn't something that is beginning to happen. This is actually gone on all this time. This is the foundation of everything. Yes. And the fact that we know it now is actually a sign that it's coming to an end.
Yes.
It only has power in secrecy.
That's right.
And here we are hearing about it and seeing it happen real time. This, from my perspective, this is an enormous amount of progress.
Absolutely.
We are just,
and everything is connected. And so you talked about, you know, the purported case in Tennessee and all of that, and that's coming to play. But because, as I keep, you know, doing my whole thing about above the fold and below the fold, so that's the top of below the fold. We haven't gotten to that yet. We're working our way up, and that's one of the next places we'll go, because that's how all of that and all the puppet masters all tied together. And it's another example of what you just talked about, Lisa, is that nothing is broken. The electoral system did not break down, and the electoral officials did not, you know, have a few bad apples and script. This is the way it was designed. This is the way it's always worked. You've actually never had a free and fair. I would probably, the easiest way to sum it is you, I, me, we're not free.
Nope.
We're not free to think. We're not free to create. We're not free to be. We're not free to do. We just have an illusion of it. It has never existed. Because watch out. When that light shines and that spark comes within you, and you begin even just a whiff of a glimmer of a wisp of actually truly creating and being free, I mean, it will knock your socks off.
Yeah.
Well, I want to take a moment and welcome everyone, because we do have a much larger crowd now than we did a little earlier when we first started. And I want to invite everyone also. I am keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions or you want to add anything periodically, I'm happy to share your comments with Lisa and BZ. I want to welcome Dottie Aldridge, who was very excited to be first in the room for once. And Stephen, or Yellow Brick Road, has joined us. Angie Atkins is in the house. Ojo has joined us as well. For those of you not aware, Joe is Lisa's dad. Mike Ford is in the house. Patricia Julia Burke has joined us. And Cece and Make Earth Love Again, our darling Lori, is in the house. And I want to say, I wanted to share with the two of you something that I had an opportunity while I'm visiting here to take a look at and ask you if you were aware. Now, I was trying to pull it up while you two were speaking, but I think it was either right before the election or right after the election. I'm not sure which, President Trump enacted or activated National Security Action, hold on, it's called NSAM, National Security Action Memoranda number 57, which was signed by JFK. And it has to do with, there were three that were done together, 55, 56, and 57. And it has to do with defanging the CIA. And I find that highly interesting that he did that. And, you know, I don't, like I said, I don't have all the exact particulars, but we all know.
Before the official part of the election, November 3rd.
Oh, okay. So that's what I thought. I thought that he had, but I wasn't exactly clear on that. So I wanted to, you know, just let everyone know. I think that's particularly interesting, especially given now this. Do we have what some would ask for as far as official confirmation about what happened in Frankfurt? Although I find it very interesting.
Yes, General McInerney was on the interview that I posted. It's the
right, and I heard
that Flynn has given, General Michael Flynn has given since he was given an innocent pardon. So it is, he wasn't guilty, and then Trump let him off the hook. If you read what the press secretary wrote about that and how there are different kinds of ways that different pardons are done, and it's a full pardon, and it states that he never was guilty, and it's a clearing of a miscarriage of justice.
Well, just the fact that the DOJ, just the fact that the DOJ was trying to drop the charges and have the case dropped, and the judge wouldn't do it.
Right.
I mean,
well, and it'll come out why the judge wouldn't do it and who he got his marching orders and how all that came, and that's from other Oval Office. But to answer your question, General McInerney, who's a 3-star general, who gave some more information after that, and he was disclosing the operation that went on and the lives lost, and then below that part of in the post on the IUV, you can also see. It's just a short piece. So no, they're not letting it out. It's very interesting because I haven't had other confirmation. I have one tweet that I found, but I would imagine you're going to see, if not tonight, tomorrow morning, that Gina Haspel, you know, she went to sleep and didn't wake up. So she you know, had the pillow, the Scalia pillow treatment, and because she knows too much, and she was the station chief in Germany.
Well,
and that's where Rick Grinnell was as the ambassador. So everything ties together. Watch all of these pieces. So when you see something happening, you know, I look at it and go, very cool. And what have I heard? What have I seen? What have I sensed? What is, you know, intel within, without, and put it all the pieces together, because there is a lot of stuff happening. And every time that another court says, oh, you know, either this motion is bullshit or there is no evidence, or blah, you know, about the voting, that's actually a very good thing, because they're not wanting to have a conversation with that particular court level. They want to go, they don't really have the jurisdiction or the wherewithal or the cojones to do with that at all. And so they wanted to get kicked up to the Supreme Court.
Well, and for me, the part of what I have felt into for all of this too is, so, you know, maybe someone who hasn't collected some puzzle pieces and they really just can't see this, you know, because conspiracy, not job, you know, kind of thing, right? So, you know, they don't want to, I'm not a conspiracy nut job, so I'm not looking into that, you know, that kind of thing, because, you know, there's a lot of that attitude. But so they may not have all the puzzle pieces, but they can see, they kind of feel like, and they look at these things with the courts as, you know, just another, because of everything we witnessed in Knoxville and everything else that's happening, the unfolding, the unwinding, the unbinding that has to be done, that has to be done in public, that has to get to apparently such a ridiculous level so that those who are suffering from not enough oxygen intake because of all the mask wearing actually get the damn memo. So that's why we're seeing it in the way that we are. That's my feeling. And every time some of that happens, I just get more and more giddy, honestly, because at some point, even the most oxygen deprived person is going to go, hey, wait a minute.
Well, that's, you're absolutely right, because there's a kind of a couple, well, there's a whole lot of layers all over this, but in what you just said, there's a couple layers of that going on. So and why is this taking so long? Because each being, however long it takes you to wake up, you're slowing everything down, or more to the point is everybody is going a little bit more in depth so that they can really give you the full breadth and depth to look at it and go, oh, now I see. And when that bing goes on, then you see the other things. Part of that is that people are, we're still have a smidge left of the choosing to wake up, right? And then it will just shatter. It will reach that line,
right?
And it's source's demarcation line where that's it, because everything else will now move forward, and everything will, we will have absolute data, we will have absolute transparency, and we will have love, absolute and true freedom, because it'll be that whole shift in octaves of frequencies and all of that. And when that happens, because it's not just the election, because it's all of these different things to start with below, below the fold.
Someday I'm going to actually buy a damn newspaper, so we have that. That's a problem, because we need
people will be, their whole construct, their whole way that they hold things, frame things, that everything will literally shatter. And because so many things will be happening so fast on all of the different kind of pillars of society and reality and all of it, they'll be shattering, in several different layers in an hour on all the different structures of that.
Yeah. So Donovan Myers has joined us. I'm so glad that you were able to make it, Donovan. And he actually says, so is all this set up to play out with the election fraud and lawsuits? Just kind of seems like everyone who is aware of all the corruption, who support Trump, have to just sit back and watch it play out. And honestly, I think that's the case.
Yes, and he makes a very good point too, because there's an awful lot in that group that he just talked about that aren't sitting back and waiting, that are doing the Eeyore stuff, that are saying, oh, we didn't win, or Biden, all this kind of stuff, or even more so on that, or vitriol. And this is why there's this got to sit through all this to play out, because it's part of it is for them to see. So they were saying, hey, I'm awake, and they were saying, I know what's going on, and they were saying, oh, we got this, and they were, except that it wasn't even in the stages. They hadn't even got as far really of an intellectual exercise. It was just like a bupkis exercise that they were on, because it wasn't in their knowing. It's an inside job. It has nothing to do with the person next to you. The knowing is here. That's what knowing is. It doesn't matter what, someone could come up to you and say something that's completely different, and you'd go, I respect your opinion, and I know who I am and exactly what is so.
Well, there's this young fellow, I wish I had his exact name. I know he has a couple of different channels that my sister introduced me to that she's been watching. And he is not necessarily a Trump fan, although he claims that he's not, he sure as hell doesn't want Biden, kind of like where I was at with Trump and Hillary in 2016, right? Mm-hmm. And so he seems to have a pretty balanced way of looking at this. And one of his channels is called Timcast. And as he's looking at things from both angles, he said, I don't care what side you're on. You cannot look at this and honestly look into it and not see something is rotten in Denmark.
Yeah.
And that's so when, some of the things that have gone on, and that's what makes me say that it's all on purpose to assist in the Great Awakening because of some of the actual actions. Because I love the way he put this. He said, if you don't want people to think that there's a conspiracy going on, then you got to quit acting like you're trying to hide something. Because, things like trying to not have these machines wiped and things like that. And the first thing that they were trying to say was, oh, well, and this is the Republicans that are in charge of the actual machines saying, oh, well, we couldn't possibly do that because of, proprietary software and trade secrets. And it's like, hold on a second. What? We're telling you there's vote improprieties, that this will do that, and it can be all solved by a forensic check. And you're trying to say no because you're trying to protect proprietary software for a company that's not even housed in the United States and has a really shady history. And, that's why it's almost to the circus of the absurd when you look at some, and it has to be, apparently.
Yeah, because subtlety and nuance, man, doesn't mean jack with most of the people out there.
Right. So, and this is why I kind of feel like, of course, I was about to say unfortunately, but it's actually more like fortunately, I don't have a lot of unawakened folks in my field. They don't seem to come in my field very often. If indeed there were, I'm telling you,
what would you say?
Our friend, my prop, I had to get a prop, because apparently if you even say this, they can.
Don't even
right?
say.
So our friend, all I have decided of taking a page from our friend's page and just begin asking questions.
Yeah.
Because in truth, okay, so they say it's baseless, then why is this? And quite frankly, take a look at today in Arizona was even better than what they did in Pennsylvania, because this time they got an MIT guy up there showing you things that, about 130% positive, 130% of Democrats. How do you get that? 130% of Democrats voted for Biden in Arizona. I'm sorry, what? I know I didn't.
Didn't that signify fraud right there? Just that sentence alone.
So I'm thinking to myself, okay, now I know I didn't do real well in school, but I'm pretty sure that 130% is way more than, 100%. So,
well, especially since getting turnout, an astronomically high turnout, I think is 80%. I mean, and that's like unheard of, unprecedented, off the charts, and think of all sorts of other words that mean the same thing squared. So to even just show up.
Right. No, exactly.
So never mind, what is that, 50 some odd percent above that?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of, and that's what a lot of different things that have been going on, and including, now here's something that I found very interesting. Now there are some folks who are so very invested in the truth that they are doing. It would appear to me there's a fellow, and I wish I had caught his name, and I may not have all the particulars on this correct, who has gotten a hold of the list of different people that got mail-in ballots and whatnot, and he's actually calling people on the phone and getting information and getting a lot of really good information.
Wow.
Like these people, I never asked for a ballot. And yet, in some of these instances, they voted more than once in that state and in another one. And so,
because they moved.
Right. And so that's
they're cross-referencing it with the national database for, notifying the postal service for change of address. It's a national National Registry of Change of Address. It's interesting. There's a consortium. I think it's
There's our 30%.
Yeah, and
well, some of the 30% are the ones that are dead. I'm pretty sure because there was a real big dead turnout this year.
It's above 4 million.
Really, it's that high now?
Oh yeah, that's what Sydney Powell. They've got tracked it all.
Well, you know what?
And they're not recently dead. I mean, a lot of these are dead from like the early 1900s dead, sort of a thing.
Let me just say something.
Well, Trump had them rolling over in their grave, and they just had to do something about this.
Well, my thing, I'm sorry, but I was going with, that Biden, he's got all that charisma. They just couldn't, they couldn't let it go, man.
Right? He can
I'm sorry.
The ashes. And
so, I know that there, I know that there's a lot of people out there that feel very, like you said, BZ, the Eeyore thing, but I just can't. I cannot, because I think I can't go there at all. Because
try this one on. When you go there, you're actually benefiting, literally giving juice to, however you want to call it, Team Dark, or the people who orchestrated all of this, or the Illuminati, however you want to call it, pick your name, they've got many. Right. You're giving juice to that. In fact, you're giving way to that. And on the energetic playing field, you're actually, you won't, because the rest of us are so strong in the knowing, but you're taking the scale, and you're the energetic balance, you're teetering it a bit.
Well, and there's something else too that it keeps trying to come in for me, and that is, and I really didn't have this until most recently. I know now that there's a whole crap ton of stuff that none of us are aware of yet, and we like to call ourselves awake. And I would just like to remind anyone and everyone who just wishes the boobs down the street would get the memo and wake up. Don't forget, a lot of us have had years to get to understand some of the corruption, and we don't even know the actual depth of the lies and corruption. So when you think about these folks, this is why compassion is so key. And the fact that, I mean, man, talk about ripping a Band-Aid off of something, it's just, I think about that and the shock factor for some of this.
Well, it's shattering. It will actually shatter their minds. The cosmic dissonance, and you'll see there'll be quite a mass exodus of people just all of a sudden leaving the planet.
Well, there already is. I mean, a lot of people I've been noticing in some of the groups, like, I'm sure there's a lot of you that are watching now are in some of the same groups on Facebook that I'm in, because I know a lot of you that watch this channel are also followers of Magenta Pixie. And Magenta has started a new group on Facebook for herself. And I noticed a post in one of them that talked about how it seems to them there's even more, I'm going to paraphrase here, but there's even more division and more what this person would feel sort of like insanity going on in folks that they didn't think, right? Okay, now, and Laura Walker talked about this and has talked about this for years, and that is Lisa actually did an essay about the mind virus. And this is pretty much what it feels like, I think, when I feel into it myself. There, you know, cognitive dissonance is a very real thing. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you were speaking there, BZ, about the shattering, there, it's just, you know, I told you when I first told a friend of mine, when I first trying to call her attention to the chemtrails, she couldn't go there. She just couldn't go there. I won't live in a country that is purposefully spraying its people with chemicals.
So I'm going to stop you there for a second, because Lisa and I had just an off-camera conversation last night, and we were talking about some different things. So I won't relay that. But she gave a very similar example of a story she was telling about a friend, and one was chemtrails and one was something else. But the declaration that person gave and Lisa's friend gave will be more than likely, unless something is significantly changed from the inside of them out. Yeah. Those were declarations. So as these things come forward, that's it. They will leave the planet, because they gave a command from themselves in a powerful statement. I will not live in. Now, even if it's stop, that's the command. They saying in agreement with Source that when this comes, I will leave. And that's what the cognitive dissonance is. You know, you can look at 9/11 as one example, and you've got with the engineers and the architects and all the statistical data and the temperature that steel melts and all these kinds of things, and still a lot of people have woken up to it, but an awful lot of people still haven't, because it was one of the earlier, it's on the IUB, was one of the earliest documentaries on the whole truth about 9/11, and towards the end there was a psychiatrist on there, and might have been a psychologist as well. But they were talking about, because the interviewer asked them, well, why is it that people, they see all this data, it's very clear, it's not partisan in any way, it's just very elemental, raw, factual data. And the one woman was saying, because the cognitive dissonance within them, if they look at that, they're on a precipice. And so when they look at this, if this being the truth being presented and the facts being presented, if that, then all of this, which is their reality, their life, the way they hold it, the entire makeup, right, of them has to shatter. Yeah. It has to shatter. And you can shatter, you can go, whoa, head rush, and move forward from it. But it has to shatter for this, because there's no other way. There is no space. And that's actually one of the reasons that this scheme, this false construct, has worked so well, because of all the different programming that they have, and the shielding mechanisms on that program we've talked about for years and years and years. And look at the diapers on the face. You know, you've got the shaming, and you can just set it once and people do all the stuff for you. You know, you've got, so this is the shattering that I'm talking about that has to happen. It's actually a good thing, because no being can move forward in widening their aperture of consciousness until that shattering takes place. it's a choice from within whether or not you allow that shattering to be the end of this embodiment, or whether you allow that shattering to preclude you from being able to, you know, you can, and it can happen in a second. You can shatter and come down, and you can go, and with the sight now, the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you can then look and put it back together. In fact, you're bigger, better, stronger, and more expansive than you were prior to. But it's a stage that has to go through. And this will happen, like I said, in rapid succession, because you have not only the election, but then you've got all the other things, and pedophilia and all that kind of stuff. Wait till the Federal Reserve comes in, that everything, the financial slavery, I mean, the ramifications and the shattering that goes on. And when it's revealed just how wide and deep and pervasive, and in all the ways that it happened, and in all the ways that was trafficked off planet and all that, even those who are well versed in the Federal Reserve and all that kind of stuff will go, there's going to be a lot of shattering, even in the, you know, those in the know with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying, you know, even those of us who think we know a thing, you know, I'm holding all of that real loosely, because I got to be honest with you. I have a sneaking suspicion, for me personally, that a lot of what I think I know is still intellectual exercise. Now, I'm knowing that I am working towards it becoming alchemical epiphany, and I'm sure that it will, because I am aware of that, and I'm working towards that, right? Because it is a completely different thing. Having now experienced the difference between an intellectual exercise and an alchemical epiphany, don't worry, you'll know.
You can't
because before I couldn't have told you, and now I could try to, but I don't think you would get it. But believe you me, when it moves from intellectual exercise to alchemical epiphany, you will know it. I promise you.
You become it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you don't really have to share it with others for them to know either. Just you holding that awareness, embodying that awareness, helps and facilitates everyone else. So I've really been keeping it right here, and I found myself getting a little Eeyore-ish at times, looking at stuff like, you know, I could feel that creeping in. And so I've decided to take lots of breaks from watching all of that. You know, when I get those emotions welling up, then that signals to me it's time to take care of me. Yeah. And the first thing I do is just breathe and look around. And I see, is there anything really to feel bad about in any way, shape, or form? And just centering myself in this actual moment of now always tells me a completely different story. One that says I'm safe, I'm happy, I'm comfortable, I'm surrounded by love. And by keeping that as my core focus frequency, I know that I am assisting. Yes. And I don't even have to know how or with what, because that takes me out of my center and my flow and into Eeyore, really. So frequent breaks from media have been serving me very well lately.
Yeah, go outside and hug a tree, take off your shoes and socks and do some grounding. Watch the clouds go. You know, on this full moon, wherever you are, go outside and listen to the stars breathe. It's the most wonderful sound. And the shift, I mean, I can feel it happening right now just talking about it.
Me too.
The shift that goes on within you when you do that, and the expansion that you will, your whole beingness just zooms out beyond the edge of the planet, and it's just astonishingly beautiful.
I like what Karen Reeves had to offer us about all the dead folk. She said the Vatican is considering making Joe Biden a saint. So many have risen from the dead. Yeah, that'd be good. I mean, it would go right along the line with
a lot too, doesn't it?
Yeah. Sounds like par 4 there. Oh, Fawn Denmark has joined us too. She says, sounds like a Patriot outreach program. Let's call them, verify their votes. Listen, that's why I said I really loved the idea of what that fellow was doing. Now, I don't know if
he was being and doing. That was gorgeous.
But that's exactly what I was just going to
love it.
Something we talked about last night. You know, at the beginning when Heather was explaining the paperwork, and it was you know, late 2012, early 2013, and people, you know, were excited and they could feel what was going on, and so many would say, well, what should I do? Tell me what I can do. What do you want me to? And she'd say, go be and do. And they're like, no, tell me what to do. And she said, no, go be and do. And they're like, and a lot of them go, okay. They went off and did. And some of them, like, you know, kind of like Sheila, well, just tell me what to do. And that's the beauty. That's why it's an inside job. So on the one hand, this is theater to wake everyone up. And there is a plan, but the plan, which is an inside job, the plan comes from within you. But the plan gets even more grand and even more all-encompassing and even more thorough and amazing and intricate and nuanced and sublimely beautiful in its complex yet infinitely simple structure, right? The beauty of that. As each being goes off and is nudged to do whatever it is, it was a meditation or a song or a meme or an article or a video or any number of all those things, or walking down the street and just something occurs to say to somebody or whatever it is, that's the being and the doing, because it's a coordinated, cohesive connection and operation within each other. And without any spoken word necessary, one writes this piece and one posts that piece, and then this happens and this happens. And it's this whole symphony that we're all unfolding to bring this up, because there is no hierarchical thing. There's nobody who's going to save your ass. It's just not going to happen. You're going to save it.
Right.
It's an inside job. And when you realize that and you see, and you feel that, I guess it's your ego mind coming up and saying, well, they're going to miss the deadline, or this is going to happen, or someone's stopping it, or, you know, it's none of that. Because well, it's always been this way, but now we're seeing it. This is not, you know, as wasn't there an old commercials? This is not your father's election. This is not those normal things, because what you thought was normal never existed. That's an illusory nature. And so now you're seeing for the very first time. And there was a couple of people who've mentioned this. They're either watching or they're going to watch, but they've come into the MOP and they're talking about, well, but the deadlines are coming up that have that, you know, there are different deadlines that move you further and further down the process, down the road of the beyond the certification from the local county level and then the state level, but the electoral college and all of that going through. And they're saying, well, but if those deadlines come and they're missed, then that's it. It's not. It's not for a whole lot of reasons, just in general. But remember what I talked about earlier, that we are at war, and we have active, engaged infiltration of armed enemies that are from not only this country, but other countries, and there's at least 5 of them. and they have invaded on our own soil, and part of that is, yes, in a digital way, actually in armed conflict way in the United States soil, but also where they killed soldiers in Germany, but it was in Germany on US soil, right, in the compound that was the CIA.
Right.
Well, so have a combination of the insurgency, because the CIA people who were supposed to be Americans fighting for, were not, they were turncoats. So all of that, what that happens now that changes the deadlines, it changes the precedent, it changes the war powers that he has, changes all of those things, which are not done for Trump. They're not his idea. There's not something, it's settled law. It's right. Constitutional and settled law comes through. So that all those things will now be changed, because this is an entirely new precedent in the review of the Electoral College, in the review of challenging it, in the review of the deadlines and the dates and how all those goes through. The data that is there of not fraud, it's treason.
Right. Well,
treason.
That's why I brought up the enacting of that National Security Action Memorandum 57. That's the one that was enacted. And again, I don't have a good enough grasp about what it actually means, but I just know there's something, I just know that has to do with all of this. And I wanted to ask the two of you and all of you watching as well. I keep having this come in, and there's nothing I can point to, but I have a sneaking suspicion that this Iranian nuclear scientist that was killed has something to do with this too.
Oh yes.
Not in the way that it's being portrayed, but that has to do specifically with the election. And I don't know why that's coming in for me like that, but it is. They're calling him a nuclear scientist, and maybe he is, but I'm feeling that it's related to in some way, shape, or form, either the machines themselves or something. I'm not certain exactly, but that's just my intuition, but it won't go away. I was watching something and I saw it scroll again across the bottom of the computer. It was one of those alternative news outlets, and it was scrolling across the bottom, and it said, of course, they're trying to blame Israel, as they always do. And I, of course, personally, I feel like that's an attempt to muddy the whole Abraham Accords, but it hit me again. And because it said that Iran is closed-mouthed about it, and they generally are not. When something like that happens, they've not made any sort of statements that I'm aware of, except to say that they want to blame Israel, which, like I said, that's like par for the course.
Well, I noticed too that their mouthpieces on Capitol Hill are fairly quiet too, considering.
This is my point, and usually that's the first thing, and so
because they don't want people looking to don't make too much razzmatazz over there, because they'll look. Well, the other thing too is you'll know, and again, this is this wonderful coordinated syncopation between all of these things coming out. So COVID is more in the news again, not because of the harsh draconian things, but more because of what people are being moved to be and do. So they're looking at statistical analysis. They're doing the different things. There's a couple articles that I posted on the IUV, and one has to do with really very striking and clear and synthetic data that's put out by Johns Hopkins, which is not nothing to sneeze at in the world of medicine and peer review and all that kind of stuff. But they did the graph captures of the new cases. But if you look at them all, just like if you're familiar at all with, it's fake anyways, but if you're familiar with the stock market, and you can look at, and you zoom in and you can do the rods and the candles, and so you can game the system supposedly by doing it. Well, they invented that so you'd be invested and you game the system. But anyways, but there, in other words, all the charts of the data and the way it looks plotted out of these new cases, they're all identical. They're all shaped with the same candles and the same cones and all those in every country. And there are every week in the United States, Mondays and Tuesdays are the day where the big spikes. Every Monday, that's a damn smart virus. People don't want to go back to work, and they get right. In the UK, it's Sunday, Monday. So read the article. It's very interesting. So they go, and there's two. One is an article, and then also one is a whole long thread, which I pulled over from Twitter on it. And they cite all sorts of other information. But the point that it's coming now is because it's all, if you look at it, what it boils down to is statistically impossible, beyond improbable, it's statistically impossible. And it all has to do with manipulating the numbers. So you hold that over here, and then you look at a couple of the newest things on the whole voting and everything else, and how they have evidence. They know exactly that every Trump vote was weighted at 7.48 or something like that. And every Biden would be, whatever the difference is, 1.3 something. So not instead of just one vote is one vote, it's no, Trump's was 70 point something, and Biden's was 1.30. We'll just call it that, right? But again, then you look at the stuff totally supposedly unrelated with the beer thing over here and the ballot thing over here, right? But the pictures of the statistics of the spikes, and you've seen all those snapshots of the spikes in the dumps of votes and everything. But the numbers are very fascinatingly, eerily the same.
Well, that's why I said. Okay, so Patricia says she has no idea what we're talking about. I wish you'd be a little more specific, darling, because it's a. Unfortunately, there's also a little bit of a lag, so I'm not quite sure as to where she was at when she was asking, when she said that. But well, see what you were saying there, BZ, about the numbers. I think, again, see, for me, that's another bit of that folks not paying attention part, right? And so those who are walking around putting their health at risk by, wearing the mask and thinking that they're, doing for others, which, I would prefer people not put their own life at risk for me. Thank you very much, because that's just ridiculous, number one. But, I went, before we got on here tonight, I went to look again at the numbers myself, and it's still a 0.02. And if you want to round up, okay, 0.03. It ain't even 1% of death per cases. So the whole thing with the numbers, I think it, again, that I'm beginning to suspect it is all very specifically because everybody gets to choose, and you can choose to believe whatever you're told, or you can choose to figure it out for yourself.
Well, and look at the numbers. So, I mean, I'm not a big numbers person. I can get the glimpse of them and read the energy from them and see that. But so look at the numbers. If you look at the documented evidence, that's very clear on how the fraud went in the thing. A lot of it has to do with what changed. All the monkeying going around non-legislatively so totally out of rule of law of doing it, of these new ballots. And why were the mail-in ballots? Because of COVID. And what, so I mean, there's these huge neon arrows that are pointing, and all the things that came up and came to fruition of the fraud and that it documented were all because of what? You know, so just look back toward the beginning of the year and you can see all of these things queuing up, teeing up for how these things would unfold and how you could then use those as a cause to then need to have the effect of what was going on. We had to mitigate these things. So you can see direct correlations between all of them.
Right. I wanted to say, Patricia Julie Burke. No, I don't want you to be sorry, darling. I want you to tell me what it was, because I would rather that we,
yeah,
that we, you know, that we be clear. So please, you know, just take a moment and put something in there, because I wanted this to be an interactive thing. It is a conversation with the three of us, but I really wanted everyone to feel comfortable to ask questions and engage as well.
Did people weigh in on how they're thinking and feeling on this? You know, are they thinking this is exciting, what's going on, and how all the truths being revealed and the expansion, or are they thinking that it's an Eeyore thing? And
well, a good question. I would love to know that too, because I am sharing with you guys comments as they come up. Karen Reeves, however, said that she says, I have been shown that this was, she's talking about the scientist now, that this was a defection of the scientist. He and his family are safe in Saudi Arabia. Thomas Victor has experience with these events. So that's very interesting. Maybe, okay, hold on. So what just came in for me now in regards to that, because I'm telling you, this was an intuitive thing that I got. I wonder if he's defecting because he knows something. Because
yeah,
I've heard more than one
chapter and verse on it.
Right. I've heard more than one person. I think Giuliani actually has said that China, Iran, and Russia actually specifically are the ones who have the most with their hands in things in regards to all of this. So that's very interesting. Thank you for
with
sharing.
Russia being the most insignificant in the role.
Well, yeah, but that would make sense.
The boys are playing on the block, and he wanted to get in on the.
Oh, well, that's wonderful. So Patricia said, let me make sure I'm getting this right. She said, yeah, being the observer, but don't believe the media. Not one human I see wears a mask. 'Tis strange how different worlds can be. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad for you, because now there's a lot there. It seems to me like in North Carolina.
Surely she doesn't live in Governor Apple Maggot State.
Well, and when North Carolina, what was that, Lisa, about 2 weeks ago now, right? When he held his last, and, you know, did his newest round of, you know, mandates. It seemed to me like, because, you know, I don't know. I felt like the very last time I went out locally over there over where I live, there were actually more people wearing them this time than there was before. But over here, it's a mixed bag too. So Fawn Denmark said if they put out the death numbers on the news everywhere for the season flu over and over again, it would freak people out, and they would think it's the flu-demic. Well, yeah, that's true.
Well, the other thing that's astonishing, talking about numbers, did you know that we're on track, and it's just about, not you yet, but we're clicking over to December 1st, right? And we're at less deaths for the whole year as of this time than we were for last year. So less people have died this year. With the whole big bad beer ass thing going on.
Tell you something. I saw just the most telling graph on Facebook. And it was somebody trying to show and explain why they were so afraid of the COVID, because it is so dangerous. And it made me giggle because it was animated, and it was one of those charts where they do the bar lines across like this. And so they had listed all the deaths, the reasons for death. And their bars went, to how many people. And COVID was the last one. And it was, like maybe a month or two in when they started this chart. And so it was just a tiny sliver of a hair of maybe a little red line there. And then they said over time, so then they showed this chart grow as the months ticked away. And yes, COVID went from almost a non-existent line to the longest line on the chart. But if you allowed your eyes to take in the entirety of the chart, at the very same time COVID was growing, everything else shrank. And so it did like this. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. This COVID has taken everybody out, but we're all healing. There's no heart disease.
That's right. It's sucking the life out of every other disease.
Kind of pneumonia.
Well,
I'm sure they never looked at. What are you talking about?
Well, that's what I'll tell you. It was just, I don't know, I heard, I have a really hard time saying this, but President-elect Biden. That's what he wants to call himself up there with his office of the president-elect.
Which doesn't exist.
Right, that doesn't exist. That's never been a real.
Never existed.
Yeah, that's also his basement.
Right. Okay. So, but just I guess the funniest thing for me is that he actually said these words, and you got to pay attention to what people say, man. He said that it was possible that we could have 200,000 more people dead by the end of the year. And I thought, geez Louise, we ain't got but 266,000 dead from it for a full year. And he's thinking that there's going to be double that number by Christmas. What? Huh?
Wow.
Well, it's all those traffic fatalities, from whatever that will magically be COVID things.
Right. Fawn said, yeah, his office in the basement. Well, hey,
they're imaginary. The whole.
Well, it's just I have to laugh because I feel as though all of it, every last bit of it, is designed to help awaken those who just haven't got the memo yet. Because it just. And I feel it coming. I feel it's almost like, we can all sort of see it. Even the most asleep folks are starting to look around. And the truth of the matter is, and this is what I was saying about asking questions. If I were to come across anyone, if any of you in the chat room now, or any of you watching this later, you want to, if your goal is to help wake somebody up, or if they say something to you about this whole thing about, voter fraud. The question I have is, I don't care, again, what party you are, what side of the aisle you feel that you reside. Don't you want to know? Don't you want to make damn sure that the integrity of what is supposed to be the right to vote, the right to free speech? Because I'm sorry, a lot of what's been going on, including things with big tech and the censorship that goes on, is all about telling folks what they can and cannot do, can and cannot say, and we're all adults here. Now, granted, I know that there's children in the world too, but I've never been
Google doesn't get to dictate how I would raise my child.
No, exactly correct. That's my point. That's what I was going to say. Quite frankly, I've always had an issue myself with little ones being given screens. Okay. So that's a different topic and a different show.
Well, and the other thing is that people don't realize, they think that, even some who are awake and know what's going on, they're thinking, well, wow, we stopped this, but that's one of the single biggest fallacies and misconception, that somehow this was stopped. It was already enacted. It was already, look how well trained that people gave up their freedom. I don't need to breathe. I'll do whatever, because we're so snowed, and they gave it up. So it had already been, it just wasn't fully locked. In fact, it was those of us who were awake, they hadn't either gotten rid of or kowtowed those enough to get their acquiescence. And so this isn't something that was going to happen. It was already fully rolled out. And what you're seeing now, especially all over Europe and other parts of the world, and even in some states in the United States, these draconian measures, they're trying to capture it now. Well, again, because if nothing else, they can get a lot of loosh of the fear that's going on. A woman was walking her dog, and she got a text message and told her to go back home. She answered the text message and said, I'm just walking my dog. And so, you're not allowed to walk your dog, you have to go back home. It never occurred to you to ask, how the hell did this person know, and who were they monitoring her, that she was not in her house anymore? But this has always been there. It's been there for a very long time. So every time that you give your consent, which is what, make no mistake about you doing, when you put a mask on, when you do any of these things, you're saying, yes, you can do whatever you want to me. And right now that could be, they're closing grocery stores and everything else. They only want you to be able to work because you're a useless eater, and provide whatever they think is deemed necessary. And when you're no longer useful, a quick bullet to the head, get rid of you. And that's where we are, not where we were going to end up.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, I have to say that I also had the opportunity to take a look at, and I'm going to make a note right now to put both of those in the show more section. The Dark Journalist was speaking with Catherine Austin Fitz, and she was talking about, of course, all of what's going on, but the fact that she actually even said that, the Q cult has actually missed the boat, in that there are some other things that have been going on that none of us have paid attention to, and that was part of that too. Now, I've been trying to look into it, and I don't quite grok it yet, but I'm going to share it with everybody. It's the name of it is FASB 56. And it says understanding new government financial accounting loopholes. It was an entire report that she did in December of 2018. And I'm trying to, boy, I'm telling you, that's a big thing. I know, because I know there's a lot of folks that have felt like Q is a psyop, and hey, it could very well be, but I also feel very, very confident that it's doing to what I feel like it was designed to do, and that is, it's a metaphor for getting everyone to begin to think critically.
Yeah, bring your critical thinking back. Ask questions, ask your own questions.
Right.
Challenge what you think you know. And more the point that you know, and that you're the expert for you.
Right. So, and that's the way I feel about it. So regardless of whether it is or it isn't, it's been very, very helpful, I think, for me.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, right now, everything is serving the light, even the darkness. So if you can hold that perspective and look at everything through that lens, it makes everything exciting.
Because it's that holding, you know, it is. Everything is serving the light because we are all the light, and it's a holding back of all of that consciousness to move forward. You know,
Well,
as it implodes down, it actually has to come back together before it rises up and creates, you know, the next wave of consciousness expansion that goes forward.
well, we all have the tendency to have that, you know, us and them kind of way we look at things, right? And I know that that's part of, again, that programming and conditioning we've all had, you know, the dark and light, good and bad, all those kinds of things. But you're right, it all serves, all of it. And the moment it no longer serves, it doesn't matter what the it is that you're speaking on, the moment it no longer serves, then
It'll dematerialize.
right. And so
it'll vanish from the plane of existence and the playing field.
right.
Just like a lot of, you know, in the vein of, you know, who's going to take out the trash, there's an awful lot of tasks, of jobs, of industries that really are not needed. When you take away the whole false construct, when you take away the whole dog eat dog world, when you take away the thing where people are doing stuff to get a job, to make some money so that they can work all day long and not have any energy left to have, you know, consciousness come into their body. When you take all that away and they're doing what they feel moved to do, and exchanging their value and creating an expansion of the whole, there are whole swaths, vast swaths of systems and structures and, you know, marketing lanes and all those kinds of things that was simply dematerialized. Okay, you need to knock it off, both of you. Go lie down. You're okay.
For those of you just joining that aren't aware, BZ has a new puppy.
They were so busy.
Yes. So Fawn said that in the olden days, they used to call people like them snake oil salesmen. Well, there's a lot of that around. And see, I apologize if I'm not getting you guys' comments just right, because like I said, there is quite a delay between, I can see it over here on my tablet. And so it's tough for me to tell when if it's jiving or not. So I apologize for that, but don't hesitate to chime in whenever you feel to chime in. Well, it just feels to me like there's a lot more coming, and I only got about an hour into the Arizona hearing. But I got to tell you, these hearings are kind of eye-opening too. There's lots of puzzle pieces, and there feels to me like there's an awful lot of everyday folks that just witnessed things that they know are not right, that are standing up and saying, "Oh, hold on a second."
Right. And not because it's motivated from political, but it's motivated from a human being going, wait a minute, this is over. So I don't want to, you know, I don't want to win if it's like that. Now there's some people who they don't care, but they want to win no matter what, and who they have to run over and everything else. And the other thing that I think that some people are starting to finally wake up to, anybody, if you know anybody who was involved in any way in any of the actual poll watchers or poll counting, whatever their stripe was, they committed treason, and they will go to jail if they get the charge reduced to sedition, because sedition is only a life sentence. Treason, however, is a death penalty. And if you look at the EO that I made sticky again, it's not sticky right this minute. I published it when it came out, which is in 2018, and it has to do talks about the elections, it talks about all of the ramifications. It's strictly all about security in that. But there are other forms of um, I'm not sure the right way you phrase it, but ways that they carry out the death penalty that also include other forms as well. Electrocution and a couple of other things were brought back in because of all of this going on. Now, it may be that, that something goes on that there's mitigation, because they were just thinking they were doing stupid stuff, and I don't know. But at least my sense is, and from what I'm looking at, the data I'm looking at, and the things I'm reading from whole host of experts in the legal structure and in the military legal structure, that they will all get charged. So they'll have a time to have liquid bells and all that kind of stuff because there's expansion there. There's a, where did you go? Did you go to your core, or did you go to someplace else? Because all of that is a distortion that needs to be shattered, because it's an anathema to the truth of who you are and your soul. This is all a frequency energy thing. You can boil everything else away, and this is what, soup to nuts, what all this is going through. But all of those people, from the, and I don't mean this in a derogatory, but from the lowliest person who was involved in any of the precincts in any county, in any state, that in any way, shape, or form had something to do of they punched in a ballot too soon. They didn't do any of these things. They carried out the orders that their crew chief at the precinct, they committed treason.
Well, I'm glad you brought it up in just that fashion, because I was about to say that's come up again, actually, in my field, that there was some discussion about, the Nuremberg trials, and how some of those fellas tried to say, well, I was only following orders. Nope. And so, and this is where for me, a lot of folks who, well, I was just doing what I was told.
100% responsible, accountable, and liable. That's what you are. Every single being.
Yeah, and I want to say too, to anyone that might be watching this or now or later, that were you one of those folks, I would run, not walk, to the nearest lawyer and turn yourself in and ask for clemency and say, I will cooperate on whatever level you need. Yep. Because you may not have been aware then, but now.
You are now, and now you're doubly complicit. You're whatever the legal term is, you're compounding it after the fact.
Yep. So Fawn said that Lynn Wood said that they are waiting for them to have the knowledge of the fraud and certified Biden anyway. That is when they will move in for the arrest and they go to Gitmo. Well, I'm sure that's...
Yes, and then that's why they're doing with the governors and everything else, because that also strips the Democratic and Republican thing off of it, so they can see it's across the board flare. Now, the other thing that's important for people to really pay attention to, this is throughout the whole United States, but it will vary a little bit depending on whether you're in the city or a bigger suburb, and whether it's a Democrat-run state or not. But Antifa and BLM are going to get, all head up big time, because what is, and it's already in, go read the 104 pages in the suit that Sidney Powell brought in Georgia, and then the 90 some odd pages that she brought in the suit in Michigan with Whitmer named. And oh, by the way, Whitmer actually has been certified that they accept the impeachment of her, that one of the way that they do it has happened, and now it will be ratified through the whole legislature. So she's already in the process, in the queue, going down the road of being impeached. Anyways, so, but with that, those systems through the voting, that they need to have that done. So in other words, the information in the filing that Sydney made, again, that's another example of one of those things, because it's very different than if you look at any of the other motions that she filed that I have on the IV, or they're all over for Flynn and everything else. She actually has a slightly different style, because this is more of an edification filing. I mean, it is a legal document, and it is going to have a point there. But the reason that it's as long as it is, and then it goes through and pulls these different threads in it, is because it's for people's edification to be able to see a story. It's like a narrative,
right?
That the non-legalese minded can look at and go through.
Well, I noticed that. Yeah, see, I noticed that Giuliani is doing the exact same sort of thing with both the Pennsylvania and the Arizona hearings. It's, you know, it's more than what one might think would be required. And it's the exact same thing. Now, Cynthia Sims had a question, and I don't know the answer. Perhaps the two of you might. She's asking, was it determined that the Sharpies were invalidating ballots? And I don't know the answer to that. Yes. Okay, BZ says yes. I have to, I would like to ask everyone in the audience and the two of you, because I know personally, I've heard about the ballots that only have, they were only marked for Biden, nobody else on the ballot. So you're going to take the moment to vote, and you're only going to vote for president. You're not going to vote for anybody else in your state. You're only going to vote for president. Has anybody ever done that?
Well, people do that, and some people say, well, that happens a lot. I've heard of that, or I've done that myself. But what in the ridicule of the MSM and everything, they don't tell you is, again, the numbers. They show you the percentages and the statistics of so many people who voted just for Trump in that way, right, and left the down ticket empty, or Biden and left the down ticket empty, or did a specific candidate at the top and then went red, went blue, went red, went blue, depending, right, and they can show all that, and then they can correlate it back to past things. So the percentage, right, of people who voted just like that with no other thing is statistically improbable. In fact, it's above even the amount of people who would show up to vote. Never mind people who would go all the way, put the diaper on their face and go there and then just mark things. And as if that wasn't enough, then they did a statistical analysis of the number of ballots that were like that it was a pristine, this is in Sydney, one of Sydney's things, it's a pristine ballot. So it hasn't been wrinkled, it hasn't been red, no coffee stains, no, having a cheeseburger on the way to the thing, none of that is on there. And the little circle is precisely done, that it wasn't done, you could put a magnifying glass, it isn't done by a human hand, it's done by a machine, because these are all ballots that the Dominion showed Dominion over, and they just hit one and left the bomb down.
Well, at High Vibe Tribe answered and said, never done that myself. Well, I don't know. I was having so I guess I was having a little cognitive dissonance myself on that one, because I'm like, I don't get that. I really don't. It didn't make any sense to me. Now, that doesn't mean anything. It just means Sheila doesn't get it. But, I can't fathom that you would go to all the trouble to actually vote and not.
Yeah, especially these are the long lines and everything else. It just, that's a lot. Whatever point you think you're making, it seems like I think that's biting your nose to whatever that saying is.
So Sheila, how can we watch the, is it on C-SPAN? Who's covering it?
Actually, I'll be happy to put a link in the show more section for everyone because they are now actual videos.
Okay.
And
I'll,
just to,
I'll also publish the videos on the IV.
okay, but just to let you guys know, I have to tell you, my sister, boy, oh boy, my sister has been on it up at her.
All right.
She's being sacred witness like you were, Lisa. That's what my sister's doing. She's actually been watching the congressional hearings and all kinds of stuff. She is taking the time to learn a lot and see the, so, you know, I just love that. So there is a channel called NTD. It's a news channel. You know, it's alternative, but they are, you know, I mean, it really, they're doing it pretty daggone good, if you ask me. I'm not sure what the NTD stands for right this moment, but I do have access through my sister. I will make sure that I put a link in the show more section of this video once we're finished with this live here so that you guys can go and take a look at those. And there's something else too that I have found kind of interesting. Now, oh, there's Xander has joined the party.
Yeah, and any minute Keegan's gonna jump up in my lap too. he's trying to position himself. He says, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be on the live."
That's right.
That whippersnapper.
The newest little Tasmanian devil in BZ's household. But I got to tell you, Steve Bannon, okay? Now, everybody might have issue or whatever, but he's doing a program. I think he does it on twice a day.
Yeah.
And it's called War Room Pandemic.
I think they're doing an excellent job.
Yes, I think so too. And so you might want to check that out too. I will put links in the show more section so that you guys can go and take a look because, you know, I don't know. I just find it very fascinating. And some of these folks are really on it and they're given, you know, yes, Bannon is absolutely in Trump's corner. True enough. But the other little fella, his name is Tim. Like I said, Tim Cast. He's not necessarily a huge Trump fan, but he's fair and he's balanced. And he says, you know, he's saying he's looking at everything, and he's saying, you know, something's not right here. I don't care what.
It's interesting you say that because in some of that ties a couple of things that you've brought forward tonight is that in some of these conversations that they've had, you know, to check on did you vote and all that kind of stuff, that there's an awful lot of, which is why they had to shut the machines down, because even though they'd given every single Democrat, no matter where it was, got a 35,000 vote lead. From dog catcher all the way up.
Wow.
Okay. They preloaded that through the software and they can do that. And the other thing is that not only it's not just Dominion, because there's the software, the smart something or other, whatever the software is, it has two, because they just keep changing the sleeve, the corporate sleeve that it's in.
Right.
So there are other software, they're the same ones, they just have a different sleeve on. So in other words, the name of the company is different, but it's the same thing. So when they're doing that, they've given them that lead, and then they've gone through, but also they have done it where when they called them up on a lot of these things to find out, and why they had to shut down the machines is because it wasn't just Republicans who went out, you know, it wasn't just newly moved over to, it was all the Democrats who had the Biden t-shirts and the Biden signs because they didn't want Antifa to burn their house down, and people who don't necessarily, and we'll tell you right now, I really don't like Trump, but I like my country and I want my freedom, and I could see the writing on the wall, what was going, and I had to vote for him.
Well, I want to ask, okay, so first of all, Cynthia Sim says, I live in Southeast Alaska, and one of our polling places that I know of only used Sharpies. Now that's very interesting. Um, so knowing that they're invalidated, that might be something where I living in Alaska, I might be calling up my local election place and asking some questions. You know, when anybody says, well, what can I do? Or whatever, that there's something. I mean, there's no reason you can't call up and say, hey, look, you know, I heard this, that, and the other. So
Well,
what's
but not only that, but if you, and one of the ways you can check it is it gives instructions on, you know, just how to, they have the dummy ballot, how to fill it out and all that kind of things, because the machines cannot read the Sharpie, because actually the way that the photographic lens can then read the ballots to scan them, to check, right, to whether, but it counts it as an error because of the bleed. Sharpies will bleed. It's microscopic oftentimes, but it will bleed in the thing, and so it counts as an error.
I
Like
got
it
you.
counts as almost like you know, you scratched it out, sort of a thing, and you go on to the next.
All right.
So in
Okay.
any other election, they won't let you. They'll say, no, you have to have these. What they have, people who've gone on the record to say that when they got to the precinct, to vote, they said, no, don't use that, use these Sharpies. And this other person said, I'm not using a Sharpie. And they took her pen away from her because she voted, I don't know if they caught hers, but she gave it to other people. Said, no, don't use it. You have to use a real pen. And she said, it's one of the tweets that I've seen, I've retweeted.
Right.
But she's put it out there that they, you know, took her pen and asked her to leave because, you know.
Wow.
That
Well,
would be
see,
whoa.
like now where, of course, over where I live in North Carolina, they actually, you know, because of COVID, they actually gave everyone a cellophane wrapped brand new pen that you used and took with you.
It said I voted.
Yes, it did. So very interesting that in some places, oh, I don't know why I wonder what kind of pin that is. You know what I mean? Kind of interested. I don't know.
And this has to do with voting too. It makes me, or tabulation of data. But there's an interesting, a nurse put out an interesting tweet. I retweeted it, that she said, I just have to go in here and explain to everybody. She said, I'm a nurse and we have to get, for the mandate, we have to get tested regularly. I think it's every day or something. So she describes exactly what the time frame is. And she said, I want everybody to know that when I get tested, and she goes through you know, she takes the first test, and if that's a positive or a negative, and then she says, but that's an antigen test. So that means that you didn't have enough things, but if you have just enough, and the way they've said it, you're a positive, but you don't have it. It means that because this is SARS related, which is in the flu vaccine, so if you ever had that, and she's a nurse, so they mandate that she has to have that, right? She's going to test positive. So anyway, she goes through this whole thing, and it makes perfectly logical sense the way she's describing it and how they can. But she says one person in just for a 1 day span has done all these things, is 5 positive results. She says, it's just me. It's just 1 day of testing. I haven't gone anywhere. I'm not sick. I don't have any symptoms, whatever it is, but it counts as 5 cases.
Now that's very interesting too. I did not know that. And no damn wonder there are 13 million reported cases.
Yes.
I'm really not surprised
So
that it.
remember, and this just hit me because I didn't dive deep into those articles I talked about. I read through them, looked at them, made sense. I put them on the IUV. But that's what I remember I pointed out, because it's a thing that makes you go, huh, wonder why that is. That the cases spike on a Monday and Tuesday, because when you go back to work, if there's something, they make these people go to test, and there's a spike because every bloody person is counting as 5 new cases.
Oh, dear crap. Boy, that's
So,
something.
and it's very simple. I mean, look, just tie those dots together. That dot just floated by my screen. I thought, well, look at that one go. Well, there you go. That makes, that's
Wow.
why the days of the week are those kind of. So otherwise, why would it make sense? And that's a very smart virus that it's only gets sick on these days and every week.
Yeah.
Right.
No, right. Now, there was another question that actually came in, and it was my sister asked this question, and I actually didn't have an answer. So I'll ask any of you in the audience, or you, BZ and Lisa, if you guys might
your
know.
questions, answer.
And that is, does anyone know this whole stopping the count? Was that done in every state? Does anybody know? Was that
it was done in every state, but what they did was it broke the algorithm. So
no, I realized that part, but I'm
somebody
just
asked, who was it? Somebody, I don't know if it was Jenna Ellis or someone else, but they said, well, so look, these are some questions to be looking at. Who ordered that who was the one who blew the whistle, right? And all the dogs listened to stop counting. First of all, it's unprecedented, and you don't do that. You have a national presidential election, so they're all tiered and weighted to the importance, and because of not that one is more, because it affects the whole national landscape, right? It isn't just in this county or this state. So that's why they rate them in that way. I mean, it's the level. So someone blew the whistle, and they stopped. So who was the someone who blew the whistle, and who could say and stand on the authority to blow the whistle, not only in one county in one state, but in the entire counties in the entire state and in all those states?
Well, that's why
at exactly the same time. The exact same time.
Well, that was part of my question. Was it because Fawn said that she heard that they targeted the Democratic swing states, which makes sense, and I realized that. But they
already had fraud there anyway, so if they figured most people would just look the other way.
Right, but and you know, it was a great question that my sister had, and that's why I thought I'd ask it. Was that in every state? And well, like you said, now it was at the same time. I didn't realize that either. So that's very interesting.
Oh yeah, because they have the correlating spikes. You know, there's that wonderful one, I'm sure unintended, but the graph shows the incoming data, right? And you've got the red line, and then you've got the blue line, and the way it's just cosmic humor. It's just so divinely delicious. So the way that it comes, it makes an F, which highlights clearly because you've got red ink and blue ink, and someone actually just cropped it so that it's a meme, and wrote, you know, RAUD in there for the fraud part. But this is what the graph actually is. It shows.
Yeah, boy, I'm telling you. Well, I wanted to say this to you two ladies, because you're not seeing the chat, and I want to thank you, High Vibe Drive, for this. She said, "This show is my favorite way to learn about current events details. Love how you all discuss this on so many levels." That's kind of why I like getting together to do this too, because it's not just about what's going on out there, although the out there is a bit fun and kind of funny in a lot of ways. But what's going on internally and with each one of us.
That's how the out there gets out there. You put it out there.
So thank you for that, High Vibe. I love that you shared that with us. And Fawn said, this is not only about the presidential election, but all the other people running for seats in city, state, and county elections, total corruption. I feel that is so as well. And I also feel like, honestly, there's a part of me that feels like the whole election should be scrapped and we just do it all over again and we do it the proper way, because personally, I don't think Cooper.
Well, they have to do that by law. So they can,
Okay.
the Electoral College can do it where they choose the elector. So they scrap the slate that came prior to. They choose states through the legislature, choose the electors, and then they do their vote. And then those votes, then the vote. So it is going to be one or the other, right? So the vote, particularly in the presidency, the vote goes up to the House of Representatives and the Senate, and the House of Representatives, and they then.
I learned today that it actually goes to the vice president first.
Right, but I'm saying is that it gets there,
Right.
and they can choose to accept it or not. In other words, they can choose that well, this state had so much funny business in its state, and we can see it, but they only get one vote. So in other words, one state gets one vote. And if you look at the number of the Democratic states and the way that those swung in the Republicans, there's a greater number in the Republican side. But that's only for the presidential and vice president election, right? Those two
Right.
races. It does, all the down ballot races must all be completely redone, because there are a huge number of House seats, not so much with there are a few Republicans, the one in that Ducey's rushing to, I think it's Ducey's rushing to certify and swear in on Wednesday, the senator, the Democratic senator that purportedly won, which was a very close thing, and he didn't win. You'll find out that he didn't, to swear him in. So and if you look at who were the people who were actively involved in providing the defense during the whole impeachment thing and all. Look at Doug Collins from Georgia. These were also specifically targeted because they had the audacity to actually be a Republican worth being a Republican, that to stand up for truth and to stand up and fight for the American people, and regardless of whether the American people cared about it, but that there was freedom, that there were certain ways of decorum to present yourself so that everybody had a fair voice. So those seats were targeted as well. And so all of that will have to unfold. That's why it will occur to some people more and more every day, I think, that the whole idea of having this runoff for the 2 Senate seats in Georgia is an absolute joke, because they're having a runoff that was so tight into something that was rife with fraud.
Yeah.
And they're going to run off in a system that's still rife with fraud. So no. So in other words, to answer that question, all of the anything that's not president and vice president, all will actually have to be a whole new election done for all of those.
Well, personally, I think that's a really good thing. I think that's a really good.
It's an excellent thing. You clean it up, and I would be willing to bet that it's not a long shot at all, that there will be, for maybe whatever they call it, I don't know if they call it martial law, if it's just voting martial law, but something will be imposed so that, because they don't want Antifa, they don't want BLM storming the thing and people lined up, because it'll be only unless there's some real reason, like you're old or sick or frail or something like that, right? That you can't go, that it will all be done in person. And I would imagine they'll probably do something like that in a state like mine, where it has to be mail-in. The way that it was, the governor who was running against Governor Appomaggin has not conceded and will not concede until all of this is, because he knows that he won.
Oh boy, looks like we got a little bit of breaking news from from our friends in the chat. Thank you, Cynthia Sims. She just said Sidney Powell just released that the server for Georgia that the judge impounded has disappeared before they could retrieve it. So,
it's the damnedest thing that dogs in Georgia just ate that server, man, and it can't be turned in as homework.
Well, you know, before we actually met here this evening, first of all, they ordered first the judge ordered it impounded. Then he changed his mind. Then he changed his mind again. Okay.
Because the threats were flying fast and furious.
and before they could get there to do anything, it crashed.
Yeah.
The server crashed. Aw. But guess what? I happen to know that there's still a way to get forensically to get the information that's on there.
No, make no mistake, it's already got copied long ago. They just need everybody to play out their dirty hands. Yeah. No, it's funny right. when I was reading it real time, you know, seeing it flash by on my phone. I was at work today on my phone. That, you know, he said, yes, we're gonna secure the you know, you can't wipe the machines to go through. And then almost immediately he said, no, I rescind that, right? And choose it again. I laughed because I said, well, that's because they need time. That the saying I'm securing them was a heads up. Get your operatives in place to go do bad stuff to the server. Now, no, I'm taking that back. Yep. Wipe the thing. Okay, now, right? Because they figured then it's like isn't that a great classic jewelry heist thing, right?
Yeah.
Where you feign taking the thing, you swap it out, and then they get it back, and they find out that they've got a paste jewel instead.
Right. Well, so Kevin Westring is in the house. He has joined us. And he chimed in about the votes because Fawn had said something about, you know, that we needed to go to paper ballots with ID only. Mm-hmm. And Kevin said, and a receipt of your vote confirming it. And she agreed to that, and so do I. He said, I get a receipt showing everything at a store. Why not for who I voted for?
That's exactly right. That's exactly
I agree. I absolutely agree. And Fawn offered that it looks like the judge is in trouble. Oh, honey, I think there's a people in trouble.
It begins with a capital TREASON.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of folks in trouble about now. Because I think a lot of folks is going to jail.
Yeah, there's a New Yorker saying, you know, your ass is grass. Well, there's a lot of grassy asses out there.
Yeah, I'm sure. I am sure. Kevin said he actually dreamt this months ago. That's interesting.
Really?
Yeah. We'll have to have a conversation about that, Mr. Westring.
Yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yes. So hit me up and let me know when you're free next, and we'll do that. And so Fawn said, yeah, they copied it and now it is showtime. Well, yeah, I think there's a whole lot about that.
Read that again. I missed the part of that.
Fawn said that she copied it and now it's showtime. And I think that's true. Fawn said this is better than Who Shot JR. Yes, I would agree. I would agree. And Lucas Schick said, I love you all. It's good to hear your voices. This is a grand time. Yes, it is a grand time. That's why I'm so glad that you guys all came to join us for this. And, you know, like I said, I'm watching the comments. So if you have any questions or you want to chime in anything, by all means, do that.
Well, I think too that I'm excited because, well, I'm excited on all sorts of fronts, but, and soon I can let some of the cats out of the bag, but not yet. But I'm excited because this conversation, I think, really lets people play with from their own, from their way, because they're the expert for them, how exciting and how many things dovetail into each other. And this, oh, wow, that opens up that, and there's that and that. And we haven't even gotten to the top of below the fold. We haven't gotten to the big guns of the financial sector. Hang on, baby, because that's going to be cool, and all those things will. And then when we get, to above the fold, spectacular.
Just no, exactly right. Exactly right. So Kevin said Sloppy Joe had dog socks, then fell and hit his leg. Watch for the boot, like John McCain. Yeah, I did hear that he's actually already in a boot. That was, I don't know that for a fact. I haven't seen anything.
Why do you think he hasn't left his basement?
Yeah, no, I saw some footage of him leaving, like, I don't know, the hospital. They didn't show the boot or anything, but yeah, it's definitely.
Well, I have to say,
and then I just want to stop you for one thing, and that's one of those things that, like, we've talked about, how this is the space in between this election is to help wake people up. And we've given some other examples about that kind of thing. Oh, the suit that filing that Sidney Powell made and all that kind of stuff. Well, the whole boot thing, they can isotope them and track them from a satellite, so they don't need something as archaic as a boot. But the boot is a good linear metaphor for people to then call attention to it, especially when you can then have optics where you got a whole lot of booted boobs, right? And they all got boots on, just like they all have that scar, the bruise on their face, and all those kinds of things. So,
well, and this was something, and I cannot remember who said this, but at one point today, and I don't have anything I could point to, but we've heard this before about others, that there's a possibility that Biden actually turned.
Could be. I was saying something to Lisa last night. You'll find in a lot of this that, because it is theater, and a lot of these people are playing out their plea deals, and of course, now keep in mind, they have a plea deal for one thing, but they've done so much bad shit that it's like a candy store, man. You've got the Pez dispensers and the string candies, and then the pixie sticks. So just pick a section, and you get a plea deal for this, but you're going down for that sort of thing. But so they have that, but it slipped right out. I was going to go somebody's kind of cool with that. I don't know. I don't remember where I was going. How did I start?
Oh, well, you were talking about all the different things that we could. Okay, so let's see. You did this and this and this and this. There's like a whole plethora of things that they're going to go down for.
I know, because they're doing plea deals. So you'll see a lot of people out there, and it's theater to show people what's going on. Mm-hmm. But don't be surprised that there's some of them who you think are the baddest of the baddies, or they're just ridiculous, or they're mouthing off, or whatever it is, right? He who screams the loudest is looking, and all those kinds of things. But there are some that almost from the beginning have actually done some bad stuff, and they have, done the plea deal, and then they've actually gone even further and turned their energetic stripe, right?
Are you referring to my friend Lindsey Graham, perhaps?
Well, yes, that's part of it. And and No Name had stuff on him, and so that's why. But what I'm saying is they've changed that. But there are some that are actively chirping and singing, and I have nothing except my own knowings and intuition and read on the energies. But there'll be some interesting ones. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Jim Acosta from CNN, from almost the jump, has been one of those. That's his role. He's not a pristine lily white by any means, but not only the plea deal, but flip the switch, because he's embedded, right? He's an embed right in that whole organization, and but there's something about that every time it comes up, I go, I think he's one of those ones. Then they'll be in different places, and some people would be, I think, very surprised at some of the particular lushes, or was the microphone that you just can't imagine that female could be that stupid. And I think you'll find that they're singing for their life.
No,
so they're making it really good and really count.
Yeah, I think you're right.
They're doing it knowingly and willingly at this point, because they didn't have, that was the best choice they had. So they were taking it.
Well, I want to share with the two of you too that Cynthia Sims, the gal that was from Alaska, also shared that she's been watching us. Well, she says for about 5 years, but I'll say obviously from the very beginning. And that she always enjoys our conversations and she appreciates our insights. I wanted the two of you to hear that. Thank you very much, Cynthia. Love that you shared that with us. Fawn said that I think some are going to sing like a bird. I do. I think they are. And Fawn, you said, I heard Camilla. Are you talking about Kamala? Or because that's you got.
She changed her. She changed the way she herself, not Fawn, but the person in question changed how she pronounces her name. So given the day, she pronounces it too. And I think she spells it slightly differently.
Okay, but we're talking about Ms. Harris. Is that correct? Could you confirm that for me, Fawn? She's saying something about her being in witness protection. And High Vibe said, "Wow, now that would be a plot twist if Acosta flipped." Well, what better way?
I mean, think about it. You go, wait a minute, and then you go, wait a minute.
Yeah, see, because
and listen, next time there's going to be a rally coming up, too much of, just watch. It's very, very interesting. So that's what I'm saying. There's so much fascinating stuff. Just take a breath for a minute and go, holy crap, look at that, right? I mean, the connecting the dots are just, beautiful puzzles that are just unfolding all over the place.
Yeah.
It's all connected from Tennessee, right in your backyard, in your house, in your neighborhood, in your town. It is all connected. And you are an absolute essential, integral part to what is going on and to bringing this down. It cannot happen without each one of you. It can't.
No, that's true. Lisa, you were going to say something.
Yes, I was. Okay, it came back. Right. I saw something interesting today, and it was on Twitter, but I can't really remember. It was an article, and it was about people close to Biden encouraging him to concede, like in his campaign team. Yeah. And I thought, well, that's interesting.
It's just disinfo, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, listen.
Because it's more, what is it? Well, think about it. What does it foster? It might get the Eeyores excited. You go, oh, okay, that'll be over. But again, it's like, the same kind of thing where you think that there's a choice in naturopathic medicine and something else, all the, the GNC and all those health food stores. There, look at the sleeves behind them, and many of them either started that way or were bought out by. It's part of the whole illusory nature of the false construct to have, because each being is so not small and is so conscious, even in their most unconscious state, that every time you take a breath, you're evolving and you're expanding. You can't help it. It's just the nature of the being that you are. And so the whole system that's built on the illusion has got to keep doing everything it can to thwart all of that expansion, to thwart all of the light bulbs going on, the little tiny infinitesimal fissure cracks coming in of more light and more heart opening. And so there has to be the perceived choice in all sorts of things, you know, regular public schools or choice in schools, you know, whether it's charter schools. You keep going all these different things, right? I mean, remember how all of a sudden, it's fascinating to me, my brother who left the planet, you know, he was gay, and there seemed to be this demarcation where no matter what it was, if you were gay or even supported people who were gay, you couldn't get a break, and all this. And then all of a sudden, not only was it we're gays, yay, right, and gay marriage, all that, but it was all the other genders involved overnight. It just, you know, I mean, look at it. It's all of a sudden, and it was across the board, and everybody was pushing it, particularly Democrats. And that's a good way to tell that it isn't an organic thing that's come up, that suddenly that time has come where people are waking up or enlightenment. It's an agenda being pushed because they need to control the quote unquote enlightenment, or the quote unquote being non-racist, or whatever you're going to, you know, whatever you're going to name that thing. They've got to control it. So they've got to get ahead of it. And so that way they can manipulate, and they can, as Sheila talks about often, they can put that twist on it. So now they can vilify all the rest. So, you know, the heretofore just the straight white guys or the straight women or whatever it is, you know, that was supposedly the great thing and leading the pack and all that kind of, is now because people keep evolving instantly, right? Every breath. They've got to keep you, they have to have that polarization, that very core, deep polarization, hierarchical thing, and the perception of choice, so that it can keep, so that you can move, because you're perceived to be free, because, hey, I can choose who I want, you know, I can choose if I, right? No, yeah. You can choose, you're not choosing, you're choosing from an uninformed, non-existent perception of a choice that's an illusion. And then you tell on everybody else who's not wearing the diaper on their face, who's having, you know, people over for their party. And so that's something to the, why is it that you're so willing to do that? Was it your idea? Right? Again, it's that whole, and that goes back to the cognitive dissonance and the shattering, not wanting to embrace even opening your mind to something, never mind your heart to something, because there is, it's back to the love and fear. There's that fear that, well, at least you're getting something.
Well, there's you know, there's a couple of things that came to mind with what you were speaking on there. You know, I personally, the virtue signaling has really gone through the roof. And that's pretty much what I see the mask as anyway. It's all virtue signaling. The other thing,
people don't realize that it's really meant to silence you.
Yeah. In a whole lot of ways, actually.
Yes, to thwart your intuition, to thwart your read of energy, and all, at the very moment that the frequencies on the planet are changing, that make it heretofore for most people who, what energy, what's that? They, even if they didn't know it, they could feel it. They were experiencing something new, but normally go like this, and you've taken half the plane of that off, right? And you're crippling an entire generation, right? That will have to be worked with from them giving consent, and this will happen very soon, of lifting that deep miasma of a distortion from their whole frequency, from their whole embodiment, from their whole source.
It's really unfortunate. It's really unfortunate that those who are just simply obeying haven't done their own research, because they're killing themselves. That's what they're doing
Right.
with that.
And the damage that is in, they have plenty of studies on this that you can find on OSHA and Americans with Disabilities and all sorts of things. But the things that you get from the deprivation of oxygen, and there's a few other things that happen in the chemical things that happen when you have the mask on. And you don't have to be overweight. You don't have to be of a certain age. You don't have to be it's anybody, any stripe, any color, any orientation, anything, for even a very extremely short amount of time. You don't have to be working hard. So, you know, having an increased oxygen intake. But what happens and what occurs from the chemical exchange of that loss of oxygen and the quality, or the, I guess, the CO content, the actually CO2 content of that, and percentage wise, changes things in the actual brain chemistry and the brain function and the actual parts of the brain, and it is irreversible.
Yes, and it's doing
if
that
you have, you know, if you get so many ticks a day, like, you know, so many if you just click a counter, right, you know, and it spins a couple times in a day, you never get it back.
No, that's right. So that's why I said, you know, well, there's actually even a little more to that too, and maybe we'll do a different you know, show on that. But there's, in addition to those things that you just named there's also, because this is kind of the same, actually, this is a question that I've seen a lot come up, right, in regards to the vaccine that will be coming. And there are a lot of folks who don't really want the vaccine, and yet they work in a situation where the vaccine will more than likely be mandatory. So there is a point coming where choices are going to have to be made, some pretty hard choices for some folks.
Well, we've already passed that point.
Well, but I mean, no, I know what you're saying, but I'm just saying there are those I've seen, you know, out in Facebook world that are kind of, you know, what they feel like skating on the edge, you know, because they're already wearing the mask because, you know, got to have the job. Right. And so, but, you know, or I have to. No, there's a choice. There are always choices.
You're I said this a long time ago this summer. I think I uncharacteristically for me, I got a little hot about it, but your very existence depends on it.
Yep.
Choices that you make, and a job just in this moment is a pale one compared to all the other ones.
Yeah, too true. I have to go back to this because Fawn made me laugh so hard. She said, yes, I would rather have Elf on the shelf for Christmas, not Biden in the basement. I thought that was funny. High Vibe said, BZ, I love your explanation of what has happened with them trying to get ahead of the Enlightenment. You've helped me understand. Kevin said, destroying the family unit of love is important as well to bring down the vibration to a manageable level.
Yes.
High Vibe said, it is not an organic cultural change, yet I was missing that other part that you explained, BZ. She was, you know, that was a secondary portion to what she said. Kevin said, those filled with love and light need to be dampened. Oh, there'll be no dampening, not over here anyway. Oh my gosh.
No dampening here.
Yeah, no dampening over here.
That's the other kind of thing. You know, we already, we'll pull back from it if I have anything to do with it, and there's a whole lot of millions like me, but we were marching very quickly to the place that someone like myself, they wouldn't waste any time. They just show up at the door, open the door, shoot me right in the head, and that'd be it. Yep, shoot the dog, boom, boom, dog, cat, 2 dogs, a cat, easy. Get some poor, you know, serf there to come clean up the mess, and it's just not worth the time wasted because it's a, you know, this one's been a troublemaker for 57 years. No matter what we do to her. She still won't quit.
Yeah, let me just tell you how this is going to go down. Come here, let me explain something to you. High Five said people are opening up and accepting family members who are different, but there is this external force which is moving the goalpost. And what I've noticed is that family members still have a reason to feel misunderstood, even by those who are very accepting. But the extreme left makes it seem like they are not accepting at all. Well, again, for me, that's a whole bunch of virtue signaling.
It is. It's virtue signaling,
You know,
because it's not from the heart. It's an intellectual exercise. If that at its best, it's an intellectual exercise. It's not from the heart, and it's totally disingenuous.
yeah. Now,
Sorry,
Kevin said something very interesting, and I will tell you, I agree with you, Kevin. In speaking about masks, Kevin said, side note, I didn't really realize how much I rely on reading lips. Yes, I have had such an issue. I'm a very express. I have newsflash, although I bet none of y'all knew it. I'm very expressive in my face, and so I do. I watch people. And I have I used to say, hold on a second, I can't hear you. Let me get my glasses on.
Mhm.
And that's a very real thing. So yeah, I'm with you on that, Kevin.
yeah, Kevin makes me think of something when I go to the, and I don't do it very often these days, just because I don't want to, I don't like the energy in it either, but the grocery store, and I find that, and I have to actually consciously counteract it, and sometimes I just let it go. But when someone's wearing a mask, they make themselves invisible. So their energy, they've allowed their energy or chosen to let their energy be so dampened down and so subjugated and trodden down on that they become invisible. So they don't register, if I'm doing just an energy scan, they don't register unless I look directly at them as a being. It has actually changed their field, which is pretty sad. So there'll be times where I'll take, and set it up where I can go at a certain time or have longer to go. And so, yes, I'm going to get, because I make all the dogs food, so I got to go shopping for them. So, yes, I'm going to get groceries, but my main mission there is to go in. I do it it takes me about 30 minutes to get there. I pre-pave love all the way through from the actual structure, the property where all the cars that are parked. It infuses and surrounds each car into all the systems, so the registers and the refrigerators and all that kind of stuff, and then to all the people, right? And when I go there, my task is, yes, to buy a few groceries, but my main task on those ones where I extend my time in there, no mask, no nothing, right? Just me. Is to go in there and is to actually see and connect with. Don't say a word. Sometimes they smile. Sometimes people pull their mask down and go, "Do you? Are you not wearing a mask because you don't want?" I said, "Well, actually, I can't wear a mask, but I wouldn't even if I could." "Oh, thank you," they say. Put their mask back up, but anyway, so that's what aside from the groceries, that's my main purpose in doing that. And the store seems to have color again. The people seem to have color again because they, I think, have not been being seen by the whole rest of society either. Each one is not seeing each other. They mask up and it dams them up, and it's really
yeah, there is a psychological component to this that I don't.
And it's amazingly frightening that people are not seeing it or aware of it.
Yeah, well,
It's not about, it has nothing to do with your health. In fact, it's anathema to the idea of your health.
Right.
Yeah, it's and like, yeah, that's why I said it's. That's one of those really tough ones for me because I'm like you. I can't wear a mask either, but I am always very quick to say, and I wouldn't even if I could, because I want them to know that. I want them to know that. So
yeah, that, when I said it to that, you know, I've had others. This one was the most direct. I mean, she said, she kind of looked at her and said, "Can I ask you something?" And I'm thinking, okay, how much am I going to be shamed and vilified? I said, sure. And so she pulled it down. She came close. I said, yeah, it's okay. you know, and she asked, and she said, "Oh, thank you." And so I mean, here she thought she was going to get some eggs and some bacon, and what she really came was to call me forth in the store. This is again one of those things, and I absolutely know that she had shared this experience and this with a whole bunch of other people. You know, and I have been noticing there's a lot of masks, but there are many more pockets of their individuals, but there are many more pockets at a time of individuals in the store who just not, you know. And then for work, we have the.
All anybody really has to do is look around and see. I mean, that business with Gavin Newsom was too delicious,
Right.
To have happen. And the truth of the matter is, they know that it's not necessary. They know. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to add.
You heard what I said, right, Lisa?
No, what did you say?
So you said that thing about Gavin Newsom was just too delicious. Plea deal.
Oh, plea deal. Well, yeah, it would about have to be, wouldn't it? Because come on, you know the guy ain't that dumb. All right, so. But the thing that I was going to say was that I saw where Rand Paul said, well, clearly the masks aren't making a difference. You know, everybody's screaming about how the numbers are going through the roof. And he's like, everybody's masking up, but they're not making a difference. So, you know, and I thought, oh, okay, wait a minute. That was pretty cool. That was pretty smart on his part, you know.
Well, I've said to people, you know, before he said, well, you know, something about a mask. I said, well, it's been how many months? I'm not dead.
Yeah.
And you know, if you have technically I have various things where I'm a good candidate to get these kind of things. You know, except, you know, and they'll say, well, but you had the flu. I said, no, I've never had the flu, and I've never taken a flu shot, and I haven't had a cold in, I don't know, 38, 40 years. So do the math on that one and figure that one out.
Well, and I do realize that everybody gets to choose, and you know, I want everyone to do their own choosing.
Yeah, I just want them to do an informed choice. So
yes.
They are making an informed choice for them. That's all. Because that's the best.
That's actually not what's happening.
No.
And you know, I mean, the thing of it is like, I mean, each and every state that has enacted anything that has to do with this, it's really easy to go and find out exactly what is being said. I know because I did it in my state. You know, you just Google it and you look for the executive order that your governor has put up.
Read the wording.
Yeah.
And the wording is completely betting on what? That you're not paying attention.
That's right.
You don't think for yourself. That you are just falling back with the herd as you run through the thing, because they know damn well you're too lazy to go and do a little finger doing the walking, right? And look up the information, and you just take it on. The CDC said, okay, great. So then click the links for why masks are mandated according to the CDC. Well, if you go to their site, it's the only thing they cite as studies, and the studies right there tell you that there are no studies about masks. In fact, they have studies that masks are bad for you.
Right.
But it's the greatest case of hearsay and assigning expert, guru, control, father knows best strategy on you. And for the most part, people are swallowing it hook, line, and sinker. So how does anybody have the cojones then to say, well, I'm not free, or isn't this election over? Excuse me, it doesn't work that way. You're either 100% responsible, accountable, and liable, or you're a doormat.
I'm gonna see if I can find it because I've also I happened to see it in passing when I was looking for something else. But there's actually been a new mask study that was done. I believe it was Denmark
It was
or
Denmark, yep.
yep. And I know that Ben Swan has done another video. He did one about masks already, but he has done, I believe he's done another video based on that very specific study.
Like I said, there's a couple of things I just newly posted on the Ivy. I think 3 or 4 of them that are about COVID is really good, helpful stuff. If people want to, they can point. It's studies and stuff but you can point to. You can use it either to send to somebody or to have in your back pocket if you're going someplace. Right. But now is a time when all of this stuff is coming out more and more. And again, everybody will be held accountable. It may not be what people are thinking, just like they think that the judicial system has anything to do with justice. So, keep that in mind. But it will be cosmic accountability.
Yeah. Going on. Well, Kevin offers, did everyone forget that a Pennsylvania federal judge declared all mandates illegal and unconstitutional, and that was about 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Well, that's why I never have really cared about any of it because I knew it was all BS. But I have to tell you, I had my very first experience while here in Western North Carolina with a local merchant who actually had a sign on her door that said, in this store, we support the Constitution. A mask is your choice, but not required. And I just absolutely adored that. I was going to go in there anyway, but when I went in, I made damn sure to tell her that just made me want to come in and spend all my money in her store, because that was the first time I'd had that experience. And I want to say that BZ had talked about, when we find those kinds of stores, those kinds of things, it's a good idea to share that information. So, take a picture, get information from the store if you happen to find it.
I'll publish them. Tell them I'll publish them in where they are, the town and what state. And if they have friends that are other store owners, I'll do stories on it all over, because we can spread that kind of stuff and people can start to say, wake up.
Well, and that's kind of what
you'll have it where there are places where they're all diaper wearing, and if you like to wear the diaper and don't breathe, great, go there. That's eat out on the town, through the mask, all that kind of stuff. And then all the other places will be the place that people go. And there's your free commerce. There's how people will decide with their own who they're giving their value to and who they're connecting with, and do it that way.
And it does, and that kind of thing does spread, because like I said, by the time we were finished in that little store, we were, famished, and my sister had actually entered back into the store and said, okay, now we got to go get something to eat. And she said, oh, well, let me tell you about a place around the corner that it feels the same way about masks that I do. And so that's where we went to have a bite. So absolutely. And Magenta Pixie actually spoke on that too, that, because there's a lot of folks that go into fear about, well, what are we going to do when this and that and the other? This is what we're going to do.
Yes.
Those who are, moving in that direction, in freedom, accountability, a responsibility for self, these sorts of things. That's the folks I want to support. So, you know, and you can just send me an email with a picture, or send it directly to BZ. Doesn't matter. We'll make sure that we share that around. Fawn said that they opened Florida and lifted all mandates, and there are still people wearing masks. Okay, well.
Oh, and that's a choice, and that's fine. But what is interesting is that the non-mask wearers are not in any way shaming the mask wearers. If they want to do that, that's great. You know, but don't, why am I being responsible for someone else, you know, being healthy or not being healthy?
Well, that's just it. I mean, we've heard a lot of folks, and listen, I don't know. I had that same issue, especially when all of this first came out. You know, if you're going to make me responsible for your health, okay, I can help you out with that.
Well, that's the thing we're accustomed to doing. That's what everybody does. Everybody else is responsible for, well, name it. I mean, my education, feeding me, making decisions for my life. That's just how we do it here.
And people don't take any responsibility for themselves. Well, that ship has sailed.
Yeah.
That is, and that's gone by the way of the dodo because of source, not because of the dark or anything else. You know, that frequency is gone.
Yep.
And your ability to be an embodiment in this planet, in this time, in these frequencies, will go with that as well, because simply it's your physicality cannot be a match to the energy frequency. It has nothing to do with mean or unfair. It's actually your choice, because I got news for you. You're not small and you're not disconnected. You know, so you're having these conversations with Source all the time, and you're choosing. If you don't want to choose to wake up, or you think it's too hard, or maybe you have a family or husband or wife or whatever it is, and you know, but they say I got to, or a job, or that's a choice. Great, all the power to you. Just make it that it's your choice, and then stick to it. Right. Stand up for you and stand up for your choice. And if your choice is to wear a mask, to go along, to get along, then by God, be the best person you can be, standing up to go along, to get along, and do it. And do it with pride, and do it with power, and do it with panache. And you may see that you're changing stuff just because of that. If nothing else, more people will choose to stand up for themselves and those kinds of things. That's, you know, do and be as you feel moved to do. Great. Right. None of these things are wrong or right. It's just each personal choice how to do that. And what gets me is that people are not, they don't care enough about themselves to inform themselves. And that's astonishing. In these frequency signatures is absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, I know.
And yet, in the same breath, with the mask, they then complain about, you know, the vote, or they complain about, well, when are they going to get their TDA, or they complain. It doesn't work that way.
Nope.
It's all connected, and it's all of a piece. Stand for you, and magic will happen.
Oh, I love that. I think we'll, unless either one of you have anything you'd like to add, I think we will end right there, BZ. That was lovely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything from either one of you?
Nope, except to say to Keegan that he's not getting what's left of this squeaker. So no matter how much he stares at me adoringly.
But Mom,
if I could pan the floor of that, you should see the floor. It looks like a frat house party squared. Instead of beer bottles and bongs, we have stuffies. And some of the stuffies no longer have the stuffing on the inside of the stuffy.
Oh, I see. So puppies were having a grand.
Puppies were, yes, they were.
Wow, Mom was otherwise.
Cover of the live event.
Love it when you're live.
Go live some more,
That's
Mom.
right, Mom.
Get live.
I'm gonna have to resupply with stuffies.
Okay. Well, I want to thank both of you for coming and doing this with me, and I'd like to thank all of you that participated and showed up. And ladies, we almost broke a record. It looks to me like there was just then 30 folks watching, and it's dropped to 27. So that's awesome. Thank you all so much for coming and participating in our current event conversation. And I'd like to do this again probably next week. Because there's gonna be so much happening, I think.
Well,
so.
I will take a chance to mention it right here, because I still think it's funny. We keep putting it off, but now more than ever, that one about my cup runneth over is more and more apt and more timely and more powerful.
Well, I'm ready whenever you are, darling. You know that. So if you have not already subscribed to Conscious Conversation Central, I would love it if you would do so. Also, this will be up and available if you are viewing it on BZ's channel later on. Make sure you're subscribed to both places, both Conscious Conversation Central and to BZ Rieger's channel, because we both do videos standalone that do not end up on each other's channels. Also, there will be links in the Show More section as to how to get in touch with each one of us. A link is always there as to how to get to the IUV, which is the place for all things quantum. Oh, so Keegan did say, hey, I needed my time on camera, Mom. What?
Don't jump off the chair. Wait, come down. Get down.
Not exactly
not a puppy anymore.
Not exactly a lap dog anymore. And let's see, what else was I going to say? Oh yes, if you would like to. Now I'm not home yet. So Lisa and I haven't actually gotten a chance to really talk about stepping into the unknown and when we're going to have that as the weekly show for sure, the time and all that. But look for it, because we will be doing that one too very soon again. Is that it? Did I miss anything else?
Hit the notification button twice.
Yes, hit that notification button twice. And if you have an issue, it's my understanding to unsubscribe and then resubscribe and then hit that button twice. So I guess that's it. I love you guys, and till next time.
Thanks for coming.
Good night.